Hello horse friends and welcome to the Imperfect Question. Today my horses are having their feet trimmed. Now I have barefoot trimming rather than shoes, so it's going to be really interesting to see how they're trimmed and learn a little bit about why they're trimmed that way. My trimmer will be here shortly, so I've got the horses in. We'll probably have a quick look at their hooves to see what they look like before he trims them. So here we see JJ's hooves. The ground's been quite hard and it's quite unusual for her hooves to be so cracked, but they are at the moment, so I thought they needed a little bit extra care. Fjords are quite well known for their good strong hooves. And here we have Comanche's hooves. You see quite a lot of cracks going vertically on his, as well as the chipping at the bottom. He's always suffered a bit, but they're not usually deep. They're more of a cosmetic problem. Either way, I think you'll be surprised just how much different both horses' hooves look after they've been trimmed.
You look so beautiful, and I'm so lucky to be yours. And you're taking me high. Ain't nobody like you. I'm not coming down. Ain't nobody like you. I could go 1,000 miles as long as I'm with you. Yeah, you're taking me high. Ain't nobody like you.
So this is my barefoot trimmer, Joe.
Hello.
So Joe, how did you get into barefoot trimming?
So I started about 2 years ago, and Mel Richards trained me, and she's been trimming our horses for about 18 years now, since I was about 10 when we moved to Wales. I've had horses my whole life, very lucky with my parents, and basically Mel really helped me out and became my mentor. I still go out and work with Mel whenever I can and learn as much as I can from her, because I've just got so much to learn. She's been really great, but I've been practicing for about 1.5 years with my own clients, and I've been with Becky and Comanche for the last year or so.
Which has been great, really, because I don't know if you know, but until I found Joe, I was really struggling to get a barefoot trimmer here in Wales that was consistent. I found one that would come out occasionally, but I was having large periods of time between his feet being trimmed. So since I found Joe, he's been having it more consistently done, which is great.
Yeah, we trim them about every 8 weeks, and Comanche's hooves started off very cracked and struggling to keep their shape. Through the last year or so, they've become really nice and still got a few cracks, but the hoof quality has really improved, and that's a lot down to Becky and Comanche as well. Good job.
It was threatening to rain today, so we decided the barn was the best place for trimming. Comanche is standing like a really good boy. So what kind of things are you looking for, Joe, when you're doing feet?
So first of all, we hoof pick them out so we get a clear picture of the hoof. And we're looking at how high the bars are, how much sole there is, wall height, so the outsides here. Comanche usually doesn't have much wall height, so we're going to do a slightly different trim where we're going to try and leave him as much wall to protect his sole as possible. And we are going to take the toes back from the front of the hoof rather than underneath. But first of all, we clear out the hoof, scrape off any excess bar or sole, if there is any. Sometimes there's nothing to take, but this is mainly just to see what the actual hoof looks like without any of the muck.
So is there anything I can do to help the wall height increase?
With the hard ground, and they're out in the field and moving all the time, they usually wear themselves down naturally. You don't need a lot of wall height, but it just means that I can't take Kenny.
Yeah.
So his actual wall height here looks like he's almost self-trimming, but the only problem he has is the toes run forward slightly.
Yeah.
Which is what we're going to take away, but without taking any height and damaging his sole at all. With the hard ground, a lot of them have struggled with like almost concussion because it can bruise the soles a little bit underneath.
Yes, I've certainly heard of a few horses lately having a concussion-based laminitis and things
yes,
like that.
Exactly. So that's everything we're trying to avoid. And just by leveling the bars out and making sure they're not higher than the hoof wall, we can help with that as well. Well done, buddy.
It has been unusually hard ground, I think.
Finally we're getting a bit of rain, so that should be almost over now. So just going to get him square or on the floor flat, and then we're going to make a small score line of his natural breakover point. So here he's sort of starting to self-trim, I know it looks a bit messy, but this is what they do naturally. They break off bits of hoof, but this part he's struggling to break off himself. So we're going to have to give him a little bit of a hand. And basically, his natural growth lines come down from the top, and you can sort of just about see them. This is one, and there's one around here. And we basically trim to the last growth line. And I'm going to score it so it's very clear. And almost above the score line is what the hoof you want the hoof to look like. After the trim. Well done. So after we've made the score lines, we can take away the hoof from the toe, and we're just going straight down so that we don't touch the sole at all.
Is it quite hard work to pinch through the hoof?
It is, and at the start it was a few years ago, it was probably the most difficult part of the job. Mainly handling the nippers as they're quite heavy, and then being able to squeeze with your hands is a little bit of effort, but you quickly get used to it, and now it's not really much problem at all.
So we can already see an improved shape coming in, really.
So this is almost what your end hoof angle wants to look like. So there was this bit of toe at the front that was pulling out, and he couldn't seem to get rid of that himself, so we've basically given him a hand removing that bit of hoof.
So what kind of shape do you try and achieve all together?
It varies quite a lot per horse, but generally you want a good hoof angle and a nice breakover point. But it depends on breeds and size of horse and everything. We want to try and maintain, give them a good balance of hoof so that their heels aren't too high and their toe isn't too long. So they're not so it gives their tendons basically enough room to play with, basically.
Is there a great deal of difference between a trim for, say, like a mini Shetland and a Shire horse?
No, the trim's quite similar, but often when you are trimming, they'll have different starting points. So often Shetlands struggle to wear their hooves as much, so they'll have longer toes maybe, or higher heels.
Yes.
Just because the weight of the horse doesn't really naturally wear it away. So in fact, I'm trimming a Shetland after this, who does a great job of wearing his hooves away, in fact, which is against the point, but that's because he's on a hill and running around after sheep all day. But then some that are stabled all day don't wear their feet away, and then that's when you see them curl. Shetlands tend to curl much faster than just because they don't have the chance to wear them away. They don't have that same weight.
You've been a very good boy, Comanche.
He's a star. So after we've trimmed the toe, we just balance the heels to make sure they're roughly the same height as the frog. But again, that can change. Sometimes you have a frog that's protruding quite a bit, and at that point I would maybe trim it. Usually I leave the frogs, especially if they're looking as strong and healthy as this. It's a really good, not really suspensory, but it's like the hinge of the hoof almost.
Yeah.
I know a lot of farriers might trim them, but
but they don't contact the floor so much with a shoe, do
yes,
they?
Exactly. With farrier trims, they often have to almost get the frog out of the way so they can put the shoe on top of the wall, because otherwise the frog would be in the way.
And is it true that with a regularly trimmed shod frog that it's a much smaller frog, or I've heard that?
It's because if they don't get ground contact, they're not doing what their function is, so they tend to shrivel up.
Right. So
yeah,
it's the blood circulation that maybe determines the size.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, they do obviously trim them a lot as well, so that would change the size of them.
I'm always amazed at the complete difference when you trim them, because they always look so shabby beforehand.
Yeah, I do my best to make them look
You do a wonderful
pretty.
job.
So here we're just making sure that, again, the bars aren't in his way when he's loading his foot fully. and just balancing the heels. A lot of this is by eye, which is, so you could probably measure it all, but until you like hang the hoof and look down it, it's quite hard to explain that you are trimming the like if they have twists or anything. You don't often see it unless you hang their hoof naturally and look down the hoof. You want that pretty much level across the hoof. Now we finish off with a nice Mustang roll.
Do you need a big toolkit to be a barefoot trimmer, or is it just a good staple of good tools?
Good tools are the main ones, and the nippers will probably last you your whole life, I'd imagine. Files are the main ones that you have to change out a lot because they get blunt, and then your knife and your hoof pick are the other main tools you have. You can get hoof tester, hoof pullers, nail pullers, and then also a hoof stand is also another big part of the job. Sometimes horses struggle to lift or raise their hooves. I find that holding the hoof really helps you basically feel what the horse is doing, and how to position them so that they're comfortable, rather than just having them put all their weight on a hoof stand. Some of them love it, and then some of them really struggle to understand what you're asking them. So we're almost done with this one. We're just going to tidy it up just a little bit, and then we've got a finished front hoof. With doing this, we've taken the toe back. We have a little bit of a step, and this is where we want his breakover point to be next time. So he brings his toe slightly back, but without really taking any of his sole, so that he's protected if there is any hard ground after the range in the summer. Back feet are pretty much the same. There's often back feet are usually better because about 70% of the horse's weight is on their front feet, or 60%, depending on the type of horse. But they tend to a lot of the horse's back feet tend to be slightly better. Obviously, that changes from horse to horse, though.
Yeah.
But a lot of them I see, you pick up their back feet, and they're usually very good-looking back feet.
Is the shape much different from the front to the back foot?
There's slight differences in shape, but overly the trim is very similar. So again, we clear out the hoof, we clean off any excess sole or bar, and this is really nice to see, this sort of flaky sole where it just pops off. That's nice quality, good hoof. This stuff would naturally come off after the trim, after it almost exfoliates it off if he was walking around in a field.
Right.
Where you just take it to have a clear look at the hoof, basically. So we're going to do the same again. We're going to score the fronts of the hooves to get his toe in the right place and the rest of his hoof. We're going to go from the last growth line. Sometimes they're quite hard to see by eye, but you get quite good at finding them. There's a little bit of flare on his back, but that's fine. That'll come off nicely.
So do we know what causes flare at all?
So it can be a lot of different things. Usually it's because they're struggling to break it off themselves. So here, again, it looks a little bit ugly, but that's him basically breaking it off himself. This side, unfortunately, it's cracked all the way up to the top, so it's not going to be able to get the same sort of pressure to break it off. Flare starts usually as flare and then usually pushes the toe out. So we just basically want to take down his quarters and his heels to give him a hand and give them a better roll point. It's usually the way they load their feet, though. Some horses have flare and some don't, and it's just, again, it's like how we load our feet potentially. We have different ways to walk. They have the similar ways, so they might be slightly tight in the hips or anything like that, where they might walk slightly off or differently, and that can cause different weighting of the feet, basically.
I think Comanche's slightly out at the back and slightly in at the front on his feet, usually. So
Yeah. Good lad.
And do you have to trim at the same angle at the front there, or?
Yeah, it's very similar angle. So we're going pretty much straight down again, trying not to touch any sole from this top angle, so that we just get a good breakover. The way this is doing it does leave a bit of a almost step.
Yeah.
But the step is where we want the new hoof to be. So this above this score line is the angle of the hoof we want. Below that, it almost pulls forward just a tiny bit. so that we create a slightly different breakover point so that he can manage almost to load his feet slightly better, so that he can hopefully stop flaring out like he has, and also his toe doesn't run forward as much.
Does flare get worse at different times of the year, do you find?
Yeah, it can do. Sometimes in the hard ground, they do a really good job of breaking off their own feet or maintaining them themselves. Other times, if they don't get enough movement, or just if their hoofs are growing too quickly, because the hard ground actually makes their hoofs grow faster because it grows to the terrain they're on. But if they're on hard ground and not getting the movement to wear it off, then they can struggle to get those flares under control, especially with the grass, as rich and sweet as it is at the minute. With the bit of rain we've had, it can make a huge difference on how fast the hooves grow.
So when you're working, do you ever have to deal with complicated things like abscesses and laminitis and things like that? Or
so this is part of what I'm training with Mel for as well, because she does such a great job with her clients. Very few of them suffer from such things, but when they do come up, I'm there training and learning. But with my clients, again, none of them have laminitis or abscesses yet, but it will come up. And with abscesses, a lot of it is ensuring that your horse has as much movement as possible still, so don't try and stable rest them so much. And because the natural movement helps them process the abscess, it's almost like they have to work it out, and like the pressure helps them burst it and deal with it. It's strange because I know they look hopping lame, but if they don't have that movement, they can't really deal with it themselves.
yes, there's some interesting concepts of blood flow and
yeah, exactly. So the hooves are almost like pumps for the circulatory system. So if they stop moving, they really struggle to almost heal and be able to function again. I know it's always hard though, because they can look quite lame if they've got an abscess. We've had abscesses in our horses before, and Mel's really helped us out, and I've learned a lot from that.
What do you think about hoof boots?
Hoof boots are great. If your horse is struggling with hard ground and you need to keep them moving, I think hoof boots are really good. Especially if they have struggled with the hard ground, they can really help you keep moving and keep working with them without having to have your horse be lame on hard ground. Because even if the barefoot, they can pretty much go across anything. It's still sometimes they can feel stones. Like if we were walking, even with good shoes,
You can
still feel stones if you're going across hardcore ground. So
that's a good point.
I think hoof boots they definitely have a place in like horse care, 100%. Yeah.
I have Cavaliers.
Yeah.
Do you have a favourite brand that you recommend?
I don't at the minute. I know we've had some with Prinny, our older horse, for a very long time, but I can't remember the brand of them.
Yeah, so I tend to use hoof boots when we go to like the forestry and things like that.
Yeah, a lot of the hot forest tracks are now, they used to be like almost wood chip, right? And now a lot of them are hardcore, quite great paths a lot of the time, but still quite hard for the horse's hooves a lot of the time. Yeah. So just to give them that hand, I think hoof boots are a great idea. And you can take them off and on as you need them, basically.
Yeah.
Not every horse needs them, but if they do, it really helps.
Well, Comanche's very wussy with like stones on the ground.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel he needs them.
He
But I
feels
did
them a
get
lot.
some for JJ as well, because like I do think the forestry is a bit extreme with the stones there. So
here again, we're just balancing the heels, making sure there's not too much at the sides, so that his hoof can still expand and contract fully when he fully loads it.
is there much difference between hooves in like an old horse and a young horse? I mean, Comanche's 21 now.
There can be, but a very young horse, yes. So a foal, they're very different. But an older horse to a middle horse, it's all about like the quality of the hoof can vary quite a lot, but that will be due to the health of the horse more than the age. And that can change from, a young horse can have bad hooves. It doesn't mean that it's an old horse always has bad hooves or the other way around.
Yeah.
So again, it's more to do with the hoof, the total care of the horse rather than the age of the horse.
And do you find differences between the breeds as well?
Yes, so again, as I mentioned, Shetlands, they have quite a lot softer hoof, different hoof quality. Shire horses have larger, almost plate-like hooves, but although the size changes, the shape is usually roughly the same. Some are slightly narrower and wider, but the hoof angle is roughly the same for all of them. The ideal hoof angle anyway, not necessarily the actual hoof angle they have.
And do you find the strength any different? I mean, I was always, when you read about Appaloosas say that they should have really strong hooves, but I've met a lot of Appaloosas that don't have strong hooves, and I wouldn't consider Comanche to have very, very strong hooves either.
No, it can be breed related, but a lot of it's down to diet and the overall like almost health of the horse rather than the breed. But Comanche, I think, is looking in really good condition,
getting better,
and his hooves, as I say, they are improving every time I come. The health.
That's good.
But we're giving him a hand basically, so he doesn't have to break them off himself, and also he struggles with his toes to keep them under control without them just pulling out and breaking off in the wrong places. Yeah. So that's the main job we're here for. Yeah.
So that's a good point. Does the amount of exercise make a difference as well? Yeah,
definitely. So if you are on hard tracks or on road a lot of the time, they'll often almost self-trim completely themselves.
Yes.
The only thing you do have to keep an eye on is that they're not flaring out is the main thing, and that they are actually wearing their hoof wall down correctly. But usually a horse that goes out a lot, so horses in the wild roughly get about, I think it's around 20 kilometers of movement a day, and if they're getting that either in the fields and out on the roads and hard ground, then they are likely to wear off their hooves by themselves almost. But again, you just have to check that they're not flaring out or pulling out in strange ways. A lot of our horses these days don't get that sort of movement though anymore, unfortunately. So I'm just going to pick this one out and then go back to his hind so that he knows that I've not just picked up his hoof for no reason.
Yeah, I found since we put in the track system that they've definitely had more movement.
Yeah, I think it really can help them 100%. Definitely. Yeah.
We actually camped out the other week, and all night all you could hear is the horses like running around.
Oh, you camped out in the field with them? Oh, that's lovely.
Although unfortunately at the moment I've had my sheep in the field, and my sheep have pulled down all the fencing, so I need to redo it when the sheep are out of the field now. I've had Comanche barefoot for his whole life.
Done.
I'm always very pleased with how well behaved he is for trimming, especially now he's older and his legs are getting a little stiffer.
Comanche is an absolute star though.
He tries hard. I think now he's a bit older, he does find it a bit more difficult to balance. But, yeah. I'm very grateful to have found Joe, who can help keep Comanche's hooves healthy and keep them improving.
Well done, buddy.
So if someone wanted to learn barefoot trimming, can you do it at college? Does it have to be an apprenticeship? Is it a difficult thing to go and get into?
At the minute, barefoot trimming isn't a recognised trade. So there's no official qualifications like a farrier.
Yeah.
So a farrier, you need to be fully qualified in and recognised by a governing body. Yeah, exactly. But at the minute, barefoot trimming isn't fully recognised as a trade, which is a shame, because I think it's a really good way to look after your horse.
Is it recognised in different countries, or is it?
I think, I don't know, but I think Australia and America, they're sort of leaning that way a bit more. I don't know if it's fully recognised to be a qualification yet. That would be something I'd need to find out. But
so you
currently in the UK, it's
so it would be more of an apprentice type.
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
yeah. Hopefully they take it on more, and it becomes like available in colleges and things.
Yeah, exactly.
But it does seem to be a big movement in the UK.
I think it's great, and I'm lucky to have Mel, and my attitude towards it is just to basically learn as much as possible and not stop learning. So just because one horse has a certain trim and you've done that for years, you might meet a horse that can't handle like a certain way you trim, so you have to vary the trim depending on what horse you meet and what sort of conditions they're under. So winter and summer are very different trims.
Different, yes.
Yeah, because their bars can grow out in winter, and then if we get hard frost, suddenly those bars are in the way when they needed them for the mud. So it can be quite interesting to change your trims through your year, and with different horses, it's really, really a very satisfying job, definitely.
It looks very physical though. Do you get a lot of like back pain and things like that?
No, the main thing is I take my time. So as you notice, I might not be the fastest, but that is because I feel like you have to give the horse enough time to basically balance or feel like they're comfortable. So a lot of it might not even be trimming the horse, but just feeling the horse and being with them. If you start fighting the horses, you'll find that you've got no chance pretty much. So I think that's where a lot of back pain might come from. If you are trying to hold up the horse or have it lean on you. Yeah, so I think that's where a lot of back pain could come from. Luckily at the minute I've had no problems, but again, it's taking it slow and not trying to do too much at a time. So
I suppose it's building up the muscles.
Yes, exactly. Well. Yeah, so don't try and do 20 horses in one day.
Yeah.
On your first day. But he's actually just stretching out, which is quite nice. But I'm not taking any of the weight here. He's sort of stretching over my knee into my arm, but I'm allowing him to stretch because I've asked him to be in a position where it's a little bit strange sometimes, and he's been really good. Yeah, you're such a star.
Do you feel you have to have a certain personality to do it as well? Like, I mean, you have to be obviously calm with the horses when they're moving.
Being calm and confident, they feed off your energy a lot. So I think being calm is the main thing. As long as they know you're not going to hurt them or feel like you're trying to help them, I feel like horses are beautiful animals to work with. I mean, that's the main reason why I started, because I love horses so much. And I think you've really got to respect them and also just, as I say, have a calm and confident attitude so that they feel relaxed and trust you. Because horses are very trusting animals. If you gain their respect and almost just be soft with them. Some you might need to be a bit more firm, but that doesn't mean you're being like violent or aggressive. You have to, like you get dominant horses, you don't want to be bit, but that's part of just being safe. So you can feel them wobbling around, but usually if you can feel them trying to say hello and see why you're there, and then you might need to just move out of their way or wobble so that they can't nibble you. Yes. I've not been bit or kicked yet, but I think that's probably jinxing it.
Touch wood.
I know, yeah. Stupid thing to say, really.
Later today, Joe.
Oh, goodness me. By a Shetland.
Yeah.
No, usually you've not read the horse or understood what's going on if you're getting kicked or bit. We're almost done. Well done, buddy. Let me just dangle that a little bit more off this side. So he has slightly twisted front hooves. Nothing to worry about. It's more the way he likes to load them.
Is that because he turns his toes slightly?
Yeah, exactly. So that comes out in the hoof.
Yeah.
I rebalance them slightly, but if I was to take the whole twist out, he wouldn't be as comfortable walking. So sometimes, even if the hoof doesn't look perfect, it's how the horse wants to load the hoof and how they would like it to be. A lot of the times it looks like the hoof is the problem, but it might be somewhere else in the body.
Yeah, general conformation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so we can't fix everything with a trim, but we can definitely make them as comfortable as possible. And that is Comanche done.
Lovely, you look gorgeous, Comanche. Look at you, posh tootses. What a difference from what they looked like in the beginning. Absolutely amazing. I don't think you'd believe it was the same horse even.
What a star.
So now it's JJ's turn. I actually don't get JJ done quite as much because she's pretty good at self-trimming. I get Joe to check her still when he comes out. She is a little bit of trouble, so we'll see. She's not going to perhaps be as good as Comanche, but we'll see how she goes.
She'll be a star.
And he's today she needs a little bit more trimming because there's been a lot of cracking with the very hard ground.
Yeah.
So Joe's going to sort her out for me.
Yeah, it's mainly her flares that we're going to help her with.
So what are the kind of differences you see in her hoof compared to Comanche's, Joe?
So she's got a lot more wall height. She's doing a really good at self-trimming. The main thing we're going to do today is help her with this crack and flare on the left-hand side of her hoof. She's also got a bit of built-up bar, but it's really good quality, and I'm pretty sure it's just going to flake off, and we'll just move that out of the way. She would have, if this wall height wasn't there, she would have crumbled that away herself, but it's just slightly in the way, so we're just going to give her a hand. Comanche's angles are different, so you had a steep angle into a shallow angle, and it's the toe on Comanche's that you couldn't get rid of. She's doing a really good job of wearing down herself, so that's one of the main differences.
Well, thank you, Joe, for coming and doing their feet today. I really appreciate it.
No problem. They've both been really good. Yeah.
Right, we'll see you again next time. Don't forget to like and subscribe and leave us a comment below about your horse's hooves and if they get barefoot trimmed or if you have shoes. Okay, we'll see you again next time.
Bye now.
Bye.